The last type of factoring we're going to learn is how to factor a difference of squares. What does the word difference mean in mathematics? Subtraction. It means to subtract, right? What does we just learned what a perfect square is. Can someone give me an example of a perfect square? Pick a number that would represent a perfect square. 81, thank you. And a variable term that's a perfect square. X squared. It has to be to the power of 2. It could be y squared. It could be x squared. What you just gave me is a difference of squares. What that means is that the first term and the last term are squares, perfect squares, and they are represented by a difference. So how many terms does a difference of squares have? It can only have 2 terms, which makes it a binomial. Okay, so we just looked at perfect square trinomials. There's only 2 terms, and they're separated by subtraction, okay? It can't be addition. It has to be a difference. It has to be separated by subtraction. Okay, so you should have a little checklist. If there's 2 terms, if they're separated by subtraction, and if both terms are square terms, it's a difference of squares. And I'll show you how to factor it. Okay, after this, again, we know factoring, we need to write this as a product of 2 things, right? So, same idea, because it's a perfect square, what's the square root of x squared? Good. What's the square root of 81? Now, the difference here is that because a difference of squares is always separated by subtraction, what times what has to result in a negative?
Negative times positive.
A negative times a positive, or you can write it as a positive times a negative, and that's it for difference of squares. That's the factored form. So we're going to do a couple of examples. You need to check first. You can only factor this in the way that I just taught you if, number 1, are these binomials? Is A a binomial? Yes, it has 2 terms. B? C. Are they all separated by subtraction? Yes, yes, yes. Is every single term here a square term? Is this a perfect square? Is this a perfect square? This? Yes. Yes. So you can use the method I just showed you. Yep. Yep. Good. B. Square root of the first term is 15. 15 times 15 gives you 225. The square root of the second term is 4x plus minus. Yes, it does. Good. I wrote it opposite because I couldn't hear you.
Made with Doodlecast Pro.